What's up, Attack MMA? I'm your host, Zach Weicker, and today we got a very special guest. He's a professional fighter with a 12-4 record and will be fighting at UFC Fight Night on April 27th. Please welcome Austen Lane. Austen, how are you doing today?
Zach, man, I'm casual right now. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Of course, man. And before we get into the fight, I kind of like to give the fans a quick introduction on your background. So, how and when did you get into MMA?
Yeah, so I got into MMA probably back in 2014, full time. I started training back in 2010, and how I got into it is when I got to Jacksonville. I played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, got drafted here in the 5th round. During the off season, my defensive line coach kind of suggested that I go to like an MMA gym or a boxing gym just to work on my hands, because hands are a big part of playing defensive line. So every off season, I'd go to an MMA gym, work on my boxing. Well, it was an MMA gym, so I started doing jujitsu a little bit as well, and I found out that like that was really good for my hips in terms of playing football. So just gradually every off season, I added more and more MMA training to my workouts and everything. And then by the time I was done and retired in 2014, I decided to do it full time.
That's pretty cool, man, how MMA can translate to the football field. But is there any lessons
Yeah.
that you learned on the football field that translated to MMA?
I mean, there's some good ones and some bad ones, man. I think the biggest one that I've learned over time, and I'm still learning, is the fact that an NFL play or a football play in general can last anywhere from 4 to 7 seconds, right? So it's all out for 7 seconds, everything you have, then you play the next play. Well, I've taken that sometimes to my fighting style where it's like, all right, let me go and knock this dude out real quick in a couple seconds. And that's not how it works, especially when you get more towards the elite fighters in terms of they're tough, they're durable, and they have great defense. So now it's about being more patient and being calm. But I do think in terms of some things that correlate from the NFL to MMA, especially playing on the defensive line, it's the power in close space, right? So out of the clinch, out of side control, out of grappling situations, if I can throw an elbow or a fist, I'm pretty confident I can do some pretty serious damage, because my whole life I've been trained to have great power in close space.
Definitely, man. And do you have any favorite memories from your time with the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Oh man, yeah, there's so many memories. I would say probably just my favorite one was the first time that I got introduced as a starter, and then as a captain as well. I mean, they say your name, you're doing your celebration, coming out of the tunnel. They got the fog machine going and everything. That was a really cool experience.
That's pretty awesome, man. And obviously, Jacksonville is a place that you have deep and near to your heart. And you're able to
Yeah.
make your UFC in Jacksonville. And even though it ended in a no contest, how is it like to compete in Jacksonville?
That was insane. Even from the weigh-ins, everyone there to support me and everything, and the walkout. And I always say, like, I always try to just be locked in, staring at the cage when I walk out, regardless of where I am. I always say, it's a different environment, but the same playground. But obviously, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't feel the energy of my home city and everything. And that fight didn't go the way I wanted, and didn't go the way the fans wanted. But even the support that I got after that fight, and then after my next fight, I mean, I love Jacksonville. You know what I'm saying? I could be anywhere in the world, and I wanted to be here just because it's the people, it's the atmosphere. Obviously, the weather doesn't suck. It's like 80 degrees right now, so I'm not complaining about that either. But it's just, it was the perfect fit for me. And when you get drafted, there's essentially like 30 something cities that you can live in. I didn't know much about Jacksonville when I got drafted back in 2010, but as soon as I got here, I knew it was a spot for me.
And you mentioned the no contest. And that's definitely a very frustrating and horrible situation. So, how are you able to overcome that for your first UFC fight?
I mean, you have to overcome it. It's got to be on to the next one. Obviously, not what I wanted to happen. I felt great in that fight. I felt fast. I felt quick. Everything was just flowing exactly the way we were expecting it to go. And then just, one little poke here, and that's the fight. So obviously, a very frustrating experience, but you can't dwell on the past, can't dwell on mistakes. It's always on to the next one, good, bad, or indifferent. So I kind of put it past me, thanked everybody I need to thank, and was on to the next one.
Definitely, man. And you mentioned always on to the next one. Your current next fight is against Jhonata Diniz. So, what's your thoughts
Yeah.
on your opponent's fighting style and strengths?
Yeah, obviously you're talking about a guy who has a lot of kickboxing experience. He's fought some of the best kickboxers in the world, and has held his own against those kickboxers. So you talk about a guy who in MMA I don't think has really been tested quite yet. And everybody that has went against has kind of just went at him and played his style of kickboxing. The guy's a great striker, obviously. So I think, in terms of what I see from him, don't play his game. This isn't a kickboxing match. This is an MMA fight. And I think I'm the better fighter. So I'm excited to display that.
And you kind of mentioned a little bit there, but to expand on that stylistically, how are you looking at this fight?
I'm looking at it from all angles. Obviously, if you look at my resume, I'm a very accomplished striker. I have a lot of knockouts, a lot of quick knockouts, things like that. I know I have the power, but I think something that's kind of slept on sometimes is my jujitsu, is my grappling. If it has to be used, it'll be used. If I feel comfortable on the feet, I'll be comfortable on the feet. But I think I can dictate where this fight's going to go. And obviously, being patient, being calm, is a big part of this as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned right there that people haven't seen your full skill set. So do you think in this fight people will get to see a little bit more of you that they weren't able to see in your previous two fights?
Yeah, man. Even from my striking skill set, I haven't really shown everything yet. We'll see how this fight goes. I've been working on some pretty cool things, but also have been going back to the basics a little bit as well of things I need to correct and being held accountable for those things. So I'm very happy right now with where I am in camp. We've been in camp now the past 4 or 5 weeks already, and I couldn't be happy with how it's going. Body feels great. I feel as strong as I've ever felt strong, and in terms of just my fluidity, it's already there. So I'd be willing to fight tomorrow if I had to, but I'm really excited to showcase exactly what we've been working on.
That's great, man. And in all of 2023, you're training for someone with the last name Tafa. So in a way, does it feel good to be training for someone that doesn't have that last name of Tafa?
Man, at the end of the day, it's just a name. I really don't care about the last name, what they're about. At the end of the day, when I go in the cage, man, I'm fighting just another fighter. So like to answer your question, I really don't care. I don't think I can really pronounce this guy's last name. I think it's Diniz or whatever. Diniz, is that what it
Denise,
is?
yeah. Denise, yeah.
Yeah, I ain't trying to be disrespectful, but once again, I really don't care about a name. I don't care about a background. I don't care about what they're all about. My only job is to go in there and win a fight. So names, occupations, whatever they bring to the table, man, credentials, doesn't really matter. I'm just there to fight.
That's great, man. A great way to look at it. And you mentioned right there the doesn't really matter who you fight. So after the Tafa loss, how are you able to overcome that and just get ready for the next and your upcoming fights?
Yeah, the top of loss was everything for me. And it's funny, after that fight, I always say, and I've always kind of believed in this, like, I don't bind everything happens for a reason. I think good things happen, bad things happen. That's just the way that life is. But a lot of things kind of fell into place after that Tafa loss in terms of people in my circle that aren't really in my circle anymore. And that was kind of eye opening to me. People I thought would be there forever are not now. And in terms of that, it let me move on to different avenues in terms of my training. It let me move on to different avenues in terms of my life. And I couldn't be happy with where I'm at right now. I think the biggest thing that I've taken going forward is obviously mistakes I need to correct, but also, picking the brain of more MMA fighters. The cool thing about Jacksonville is that we have 5 UFC fighters and we have a slew more of just high-class professional fighters. We talk about a guy, Kuba Kazuba, who's fighting actually this weekend for the PFL Europe tournament, won it last year. We have a lot of great fighters here. So I've been picking their brains a lot more, kind of, getting their styles a little bit, what they're all about, things that I can take from them, implement in my game. And so far, man, in training camp, that's made all the difference so far.
That's great, really is. And that fight with Tafa was in Australia. So how's it like to go travel to a different part of the world?
So I'll be honest, man. I was kind of because like everyone's in my DMs saying like you better watch out because obviously people were pissed off what happened the last fight, understandable. And then like I check in my DMs saying like you better watch out, man. Like those Aussies don't play, and like some guy said I'll be waiting for you at the airport, which cool, man. Come get me at the airport. I don't give a shit. But I pull up and everyone was super friendly, and then like I was surprised about that. I was expecting like you know being Rocky in a different country and just like everyone booing you. And yeah, people booed me. But I think Australians are the type that they'll talk shit to you, but then after they're gonna buy you a beer. And I respect that, man. Like they love their fighters. It's really cool to see. That was cool to be a part of, just seeing like the passion that the Australians have for their own. but it was also really cool to see in terms of me being an outsider, never have been to Australia before, how cool and friendly everybody was as well.
That's pretty crazy, man. And from Australia to Vegas, this fight will be at the Apex. And
Yeah.
this will be your first time fighting under the UFC banner at the Apex, but of course the Contender Series you fought there. So what's your thoughts on the Apex?
Yeah, the Apex, it's kind of a different scene, just from the standpoint of there's not a really big crowd, right? So necessarily like mentally, you don't have to really change anything. Like you still get ready for a fight, you go out there and fight. But obviously, I think you kind of have to get yourself a little more amped up when you walk into that cage in the Apex, just because you it feels like a sparring session, but it's not a sparring session, if you know what I mean. And so you just got to make sure that mentally you're ready to roll. And I think the whole mental game is something I never had a problem with. Being a high level professional athlete for a long time, you know what works for you, you know what doesn't work for you. So yeah, I'm excited to get back in the Apex. Obviously, being in a smaller cage, I feel like it entices violence a little more, and I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, and when you're in the back, what do you do to get in that mental state to help prepare you for when you make that walk and step into the cage?
Yeah, that's kind of changed over my career. I mean, in the beginning, it was a lot of music, a lot of loud music in my headphones, just kind of getting amped up and everything. And now I've kind of taken the approach more. It's just kind of like bullshit and then like laughing in the back. And then obviously when it's time to go, start hitting mitts, getting in that sweat, then we lock in and everything. But yeah, I mean, you know, I do this because I love the rush of it. I love the feeling. I love all this stuff. And like, it's hard to explain where I don't really ever get nervous, backstage or when I get in there. Like, if you ever see me walk in the cage, I have a smile on my face because I want to be in there. Like I relish these opportunities. And like, training camp's the hard part, man. Like having to work out 2 or 3 times a day, that shit can get old after a while. Shit sucks. But like, it's you do what you got to do, because then when you get in the cage, that's why you can smile, because you put all the work in.
Yeah, training camp definitely could suck, but as a whole, how would you describe this training camp?
Oh, dude, I mean, what was the worst training camp ever? I ain't gonna tell you it's the worst training camp. Like the fighters are so full of shit, man. Everyone's saying, yeah, that's the best training camp we ever had, and then it's really shitty because you probably hurt or something. No, if I'm being 100% honest right now, man, this this is the best training camp that I've ever had so far. Everything's being locked and dialed in. I think just because we started out so soon, so early, but also I've used the resources now of the UFC at the UFC Performance Institute. Alex over there has done a great job. I have a new strength and conditioning program now. Not to say that was ever an issue, but we've kind of tailored some things a little more into more of my fight training, as opposed to trying to get bigger or faster or stronger. Like, I am already that guy, right? So now it's about the more of the skill set in terms of the MMA skill set that we're working on, and I couldn't be happy with how things have gone so far.
Have it to hear, man. And of course, you also train at Bulldog Boxing. So, what is your
Yeah.
experience like there, and what's your relationships with your coaches like?
Yeah, man. I mean, but Bulldog Boxing is where I first, learned how to throw a punch. And you talk about what Matt Vana has built there. I mean, me and another one of my teammates, Ramon Taveras, who just had the showcase of all showcases in UFC 297. I was in his corner for that one. We kind of came up together, man. So me and Ramon, or as I call him, we call him Fats. Me and Fat, man. I mean, we've been doing this for a while now. That's my brother. He's always there for me, and I'm super appreciative of being able to follow his journey as well. And it's wild because I consider him like my little brother, but like just watching how he goes about his business, especially in the cage, that's my big brother, man, because he's always inspiring me. So yeah, we kind of started from nothing at Bulldog Boxing, and now it's grown, and we are the fighters we are now because of that. But it's been a long journey. It's been a long road, but I think that's what makes the fighter.
Yeah, man. And on Ramon, what was it? Because you're so close to him, what was it like to see him get to the UFC?
It was everything. His first go around for Dana White's Contender Series, I was in Australia, so I couldn't be there for that fight, and obviously he was disappointed that he couldn't be there for my fight in Australia as well. I'm undefeated when Ramon's in my corner, and I'm pretty sure I think he is as well if I'm in his corner. So it goes to show you just what that means. It's crazy how we're completely different skill sets in terms of our size and everything like that and what we bring to the table, but we throw down, man. And I think he gains a lot of confidence from sparring with me. and obviously I got to gain a lot of confidence in terms of my speed sparring with him. So, I couldn't have been any more proud for him for making the UFC, and then obviously having that performance at UFC 297, bloody and all and everything, man. It's just it's something that I needed to see, and I don't surround myself with a large group of people in terms of my circle, but like he's one of them, man, that he's always been around, and I'm super appreciative for him.
Yeah, man, that was truly a fantastic fight. And to stick with
Yeah,
you, on the side you do radio. So how'd you get
yeah,
introduced to that industry?
yeah. So I went to college for journalism, mass communications. Um, you know, I don't mind talking. I like communicating, things like that. So when I was done playing ball and I started doing MMA, obviously there's some opportunities there for the radio side of things, and I actually just got a new gig here going on about a month now. It's called the Brent and Austin Show. We actually had a sports show on ESPN Radio here in Jacksonville about 3 or 4 years ago. Now we've kind of branched out, done more of the TV side, and it's been fantastic, man. I mean, living in Jacksonville, there's always things to talk about in terms of, the Jaguars are big here, obviously. SEC football is big, Florida State football is big. So we're a football heavy show, but we cover all the national topics as well. And once again, in terms of a side gig, working 3 hours a day, getting to talk about sports does not suck at all. And it's one of those things where I can use my personal experience to interject sometimes into what I'm seeing, what people are going through, and I think people can appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And of course, you work at Acton Sports Jax. So how'd you get that gig?
Yeah, I think being a former Jaguars player helped out a lot. That was probably the only thing that got me the gig. I obviously had an interview and everything, but having that on my resume definitely helped. But yeah, that's I mean, they've been great to me. For those of you that don't know, that are outside of Jacksonville, Action Sports Jax, they cover the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're part of Action News Jax, one of the biggest news stations here in town, and it's kind of wild how you know I'm surrounded by professionalism, and then you have me with my beard and my dreads and everything, and I'm a little more laid back, rough around the edges. But that's what makes our show so great. Is it's the combination of the professionalism from my co-host, and then me just kind of not giving a shit sometimes and saying whatever I want to say. And it's a great combination, man. I think people gravitate towards that a lot. So I'm having a blast. Anytime I can be myself. Like that's why I fight. I don't have to put on this facade, wear these expensive ass suits, because that's just not me. Like, you can do that, and if you want to do that, more power to you. But I always said I'm just gonna be myself, man, through and through. So whether it's the fight game, whether it's on the radio, I'm just being me. And when you're being me, man, like that's just it's a blessing, because you're not wasting energy being something that you're not.
For sure, man. And since you follow the Jaguars so closely, how do you think they'll do next season?
Shit, better be better than last year, man. There's expectations last year. The Jaguars making the playoffs. They're one game away, and then unfortunately, it kind of all went wrong in Tennessee, and Tennessee's kind of had the Jaguars number for a while. So that really hurt to watch that game, to watch the Titans kind of crush our hopes of going to the playoffs. But at the same time, I think there's a lot to like going this year. Trevor Lawrence obviously taking another step forward. Hopefully, the biggest thing now is getting him some weapons, getting him an offensive line, and then also shoring up that interior defensive line as well. But they're going to be in the running for the playoffs. Houston scares me, because now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Houston Texans are kind of the real deal. At least they seem. And CJ Stroud is a top, like, legit top 5 quarterback right now off his rookie season, which scares me as well. So we'll see, man. But I think they will be in contention. Hopefully that they can build up last year and obviously learn from some of those mistakes.
Yeah, definitely a heartbreaking loss. I'm not even remotely close to Jacksonville, and I felt bad for you guys. So
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
my final question for you is, past or present, what would be your dream fight in the UFC?
Damn, past or present, my dream fight in the UFC. Good question, man. Um, I would say my dream fight for real. May he rest in peace. Kimbo Slice in a Waffle House parking lot at 3 a.m. in the morning. That'd be my dream fight, man. Like, and I mean, I feel like the UFC can make the UFC's talking about going to the damn Coliseum in whatever ancient Rome. you can put a ring in the Waffle House parking lot, man, and we can go. And like Kimbo was always the guy I had respect for in terms of like, YouTube, because kids don't understand like YouTube's just a thing now. But like growing up in my time, like he was one of the very first YouTube videos I ever saw, man. And I just remember like being obsessed with that guy and just being in awe of how badass that dude really was. So like, yeah, I want to fight the baddest dude in my opinion to ever do it, and that'd be Kimbo Slice. So yeah, go and give me Kimbo in a Waffle House parking lot at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That could have been a more perfect answer. Is there anything you want to shout out or plug for you out here?
Man, if you're into sports talk, check me out. Brent and Austin on Action Sports Jax. There's an Action Sports Jax app that you can download. We're also on Twitter and YouTube. Shout out to my management team, Ruby, Sports Entertainment, Steve Swedish. Shout out to all my teammates, man, for helping me keep me in this camp. Bulldog Boxing, got Elevate MMA, 10 Planet Jiu Jitsu, and yeah, that's about it, man. Go Jaguars,
Austin, it was more than a pleasure speaking with you. I wish you the best of luck in April. Folks, that'll be all for today. Till next
I
time.
appreciate it, man.